All right. We are live here. Hope everybody is having an awesome day. This is Dan Tomaszewski. Welcome to this week's webinar, Stop Checking Boxes and Start Fixing Gaps. We're glad to have you join us today. And just a quick heads up, we're going to be recording this session and we'll make the replay available to you later. And you can share that with colleagues and rewatch it and do whatever you wish with that from that perspective. Today's topic is something that we all need to lean into. We're talking about moving beyond surface level compliance and towards real measurable cybersecurity outcomes. And to help us do that, I'm joined by two fantastic guests. So let's go ahead and bring our guests in. There we go. How you guys doing?
I'm fantastic. How about you?
Doing awesome. We have first up, Matt Lee, Director of Security and Compliance at Pax8. Matt, of course, is very well known in the industry. Some might call him a rock star, right?
Oh, that's not nice.
Probably heard that.
I thought we were friends, Dan. I guess maybe the Bob Seger song "Playing Star" again might be more appropriate in that regard, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Of course, Matt's known for cutting through the noise and helping MSPs understand how to implement frameworks that actually work. And we're going to talk more about that. But we also have Mr. Mike Anderson. He's a VP at EasyDMARC. Mike helps partners turn DMARC from a one-time setup into a recurring revenue generating service. And he's got some great insight on how to do that. So, gentlemen, it's great to have you both here today. Thank you so much.
Good to be here.
Great to be here. And if you're playing the Matt Lee bingo card that John Harden made, I did just take a drink of my giant water bottle. So I think that does qualify.
Nice.
As one of those.
I love that. And so, before we get deep into the discussion, let's loosen things up a little bit.
Sure.
It feels like conference season is in full swing, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, March to about November. It's the way it works.
There's a lot of movement.
Yeah. Do you guys feel like you're living out of suitcases right now?
I do. I live out of a Pelican trunk that is divided into 3 sections that has exactly the places I need and exactly the right places, the exact amount of clothes. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Sometimes I forget what week it is, and I'm like, is the month changed yet? Where are we at?
Exactly. Now, it's probably a safe assumption that cybersecurity, there's no lack of cybersecurity discussion at all the conferences you guys are going to, is there?
True. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it just keeps evolving. Everything just keeps turning.
I mean, and you guys have, we've all been in the channel, probably longer than we all care to admit, right? And the gray, the lack of hair.
And lack of this right here. Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. But you guys remember the days when there was a theme each year for different conferences? Like this event's going to be a marketing theme. This one is going to be a human resources theme. And then all of a sudden this thing called cybersecurity just kind of jumped in and it took the stage and it's held the stage and it's never going away.
I'll give a thought on that, just a smidge.
Yeah.
I think this community leans into what people need the most. And as they get better at it, they lean back out and find something else they need the most in. And so I'd say it's probably never going away, but the amount of emphasis is kind of right now at the level of the bell curves knowledge and if you will, in the application of that.
Yeah, and those threats in the matrix, they just keep coming. I mean, from all sides. They keep evolving, and they, the little mechanical worms, they just keep finding their way. Matt is really good about explaining.
Threat actors gonna threat act, unfortunately, Mike.
Right.
To your point, and it's a financial incentivization, espionage incentivization, all the things. So you're right. It's gonna keep evolving.
Well, I will say the one thing that I think has changed is, we're always going to have the technical conversations, the technical side of cybersecurity.
Sure.
But I think the business aspect of it, the conversations that we're having with business leaders, business owners in the MSPs or the MSPs are having, that's evolving. And so we're getting much more deep into the true business impact that cybersecurity has, right? And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And they're getting better at it, right? Because there's no other profession where we're required at a professional level to explain something to somebody. Like imagine being like, we need to turn off IPv6 LLMNR poisoning capabilities. So we're going to remove LLMNR. Oh, what is that? Oh, LLMNR. It's a local lookup failback on IPv6. What's IPv6? Oh, right. IPv4 versus IPv6. IPv4 is this one to component, and the 6 is the, like, can you imagine having to teach so much information to somebody to make a stupid decision? There's no profession like that. My attorney, CPA, doctor, right? Even the dude that, you know, whatever. But the point is, we don't have that same respect. And so the challenge is the MSPs have had to get better at having those conversations deeper in the business and the impact of cybersecurity. I think you nailed it in that regard.
Yeah,
and you know what? That is what you just said in the last 30 to 60 seconds is why you are a rock star, my friend.
Whoa, fair. Well, just analogous capabilities. Fair enough. Touche.
I'm sorry, Mike. I kind of cut you off there. Go ahead and jump in.
I think, you know, just being able to explain, you know, all the complexities that Matt is really, you know, panning over. Really, you know, the business owner is like overwhelmed. What does that even mean? You know, and I think the vendors that do a good job of blowing out the smoke and saying, hey, forget all that. Let me tell you what's going to happen if you don't do this, this, and this. You know, here's why you want to use a framework like ours or what Matt recommends, or a product like ours, because this is the problem. This is what's happening. Here's the solution, and here's the result. Oh, I can understand that.
I'm glad you said framework real quick, Mike. And Dan, you can use the hook and cut me off. You are the host of this show. But, you know, Mike, saying a framework, that's what's helping MSPs so very much right now in this. Whether it be NIST CSF or whether it be risk management framework or CIS that I'm quite impartial to as the how to all of those. But when you think about it, following a framework gives you defensibility, almost immediate validity from a statement perspective. You're not making it up from not shooting from the hip. And it gives you the ability not to explain it to somebody who doesn't want to learn it. Like, I don't want to learn about my wall's thickness and the R value versus like, I just want somebody to do it. Like, it's kind of the point. So, yeah, anyways.
Yeah. Taking that pressure too off the MSP, where, you know, it's just not that MSP saying, you know, Mr. Customer, you really need this. You know, you really should have it. Yeah. You know, and the client, the prospect's like, oh, you're just trying to sell me something.
Right.
Exactly. And so now with having the frameworks, having the regulations that are out there, and especially as more and more cybersecurity insurance has increased their requirements, that allows us, you know, to have that good cop, bad cop conversation with them.
Yep. Help them make a risk-based decision. And the challenge is, and I'll give this credit to Michelle Accardi. She was explaining to me why she thought CEOs had a just exposition against cybersecurity professionals. And she was explaining that as a CEO, my job is to make a risk, take a risk, and make profit as a result of that risk. That's literally my job as a CEO. Right, is to do this thing. And she said, but you're explaining to me all the risks I shouldn't take, as opposed to how these things serve my business and what those numbers are and how they make sense to me, right? And so it's like, it's just a pivot of how you approach it is more about the business and how it helps the business. Like, you know, specifically when you're thinking about CIS, or even, you know, why would I do DMARC? CIS 9.5 says I need to do it, right? And so when you're getting into that, as you go down that path, you're also helping that business build safe harbor defense. If y'all aren't familiar, there were 969 qui tam lawsuits filed last year. Qui tam stands for he who sues on behalf of the king, also for himself. And it means that that I can say as a whistleblower, you're not doing these things you said you're going to do about a reasonable security program. Therefore, you're lying to the United States government and in the False Claims Act, and there's lots of lawsuits around that. And the whistleblower gets 30%. So this is about protections and active safe harbor defenses that, like in Ohio and Tennessee and all of those, that are available if you're just following frameworks, right? So it's this very simple business argument of protection and carrot and stick for both of those in that regard. Let alone insurance, like you mentioned. So, sorry, Dan.
Yeah. You know, the interesting thing is when people make a buying decision, you know, the data shows people are more risk adverse than getting the benefit, right? So when you're in an MSP and you're in cybersecurity, the number one thing your customers want to do is avoid risk at all costs, right? And so MSPs are obviously risk mitigation. They're in the risk mitigation business. And so, you know, a platform like ours really folds into all of these compliance standards that Matt is an expert at, and really shows them exactly what you're doing to mitigate that risk, to avoid risk. Hey, clearly this shows, you know, you're at risk. and we can fix it. And so, following everything that Matt, stems for, it just makes sense when you use platforms like ours to help with that process.
Yeah.
Well, and Dan, go. Sorry, Dan. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead, Matt.
So to your point, I'm going to push back a little bit, Mike, on something you said, which is that the businesses are very risk averse and the data shows it. I think that's how we want them to be. I think when you get in the trenches in these SMBs, they're risk ignorant. And some of our job is to explain to them the risk aversion they may be choosing or not choosing. Yeah. And I would say as long as we're able to articulate that or show some reason for it. But let's get into on DMARC specifically, just because, that's kind of what we're here to talk about. It's down there in like the right underneath me corner. And it's this, like, when you think about DMARC implementation, most people don't understand that the real value in it is in finding out who is sending on your behalf, whether that be internal, whether that be external threat actors, whether that be internal accidental things, right? I don't know if you saw the Gov delivery thing this week. That might not be fully public yet. There are some abuses of spam systems that are coming from Gov delivery in Illinois, if I remember correctly, where they had to send out a statement from the Supreme Court saying, we didn't send these. Like, we didn't send these, bruv. We didn't send these.
Wow.
Like, literally saying, ignore your traffic tickets. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Right.
But the point is they didn't have control to find that they still had a delivery arm that might still be sending data that they need to go and clean up, helping give more information to their retirement of assets processes and give more information to the way that they retire SaaS assets and email sending assets. But I want to go back to what I said first, which is the value of DMARC is getting the reporting, and you are going to either have to build something to do that, or you are going to have to buy a platform to do that. It has become so commoditily cheap, a lot to do with EasyDMARC, to do this very effectively with a platform. But then once you get that data, then you can go into the iterative aspects of showing that you're walking towards a more secure posture. Anyways, that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing worse than, you talk about potentially damaging your brand permanently. Let 10,000 invoices go out on your behalf and, several thousand can get paid. And then the customer finds out, hey, I paid you, paid me for what? Uh-oh. That's not going to be a pleasant experience. And, Matt hits it right on the head. That risk, you can't get that reputation back, not for a long time. Just by, not reporting this or not monitoring it. And so, having something that clearly shows you what's going on, what's good, where you need to be, and what's not good, where those threat actors are. Our platform clearly shows that. Yeah. And we teach our MSPs all the time, hey, you're going to show your customer where they're underperforming on their invoicing, on their email marketing, on their CRMs, not getting through. All of that does damage to the brand. If you can't run your business correctly, you're going to have some issues.
And slight correction, it's Indiana. I apologize. I missed
Indiana.
I states. It's Indiana.
Don't slur Illinois like that.
I don't want to slur sweet Illinois. Yeah, that's on me, bro. I apologize. That's on me.
the poor people in Illinois.
Illinois.
Right. We just recovered. We just sent them some love. But for all of our audience listening, this is the format today. We are going to be complete fireside chat here. No slide presentation. So whatever questions that you have, please throw them in the chat. We'll try to get every one of those answered as quick as possible. If we can't get to all of them, we will reach out to you. We will follow up with you from that perspective. So definitely drop those questions in. And let's get started with one of our first questions here. What are some of the common misconceptions organizations have about DMARC implementation?
Yeah, I think, Mike, you or me?
I can start off. Number one, we hear all the time, MSPs go, well, we use Microsoft 365. I put my DMARC record in Microsoft 365, the SPF settings. We're all set. We don't need your platform.
Like, the one thing you send mail on with no collection of evidence, with no knowing who's sending on you, or what the actual delivery reports are, or how that plays out, or how the standards are changing, or how I need to respond to my SPF record that's huge. Or
God.
You right, Mike. That's all you've got to do. No, that's it.
I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's arrogance, or I hate to say ignorance, but it's one of the two. And then I ask them, well, what are you doing about your 20 different sending sources? And they go, what do you mean?
Your marketing platforms, your CRMs.
I already know they don't know what they're doing. So Matt hit it right on the head.
But let's go to the real thing here is there's a reason why MSPs exist. And it's to take care of these things.
Yep.
And to go to their clients and say, we are here to take care of this for you. And we are here working for you, but you need to have us in place because the complexities that we're talking about are mind numbing. They're mind numbing, right? And, at the end of the day, the client just wants everything to work and they want to be compliant. They want their business to operate. They want their employees to be able to have a high level of morale because things are working for them. And because there's nothing worse than not being able to get your job done, or you just put all this time, energy, and money into something and it fell apart, right?
And that's what happens when you don't have your emails delivered, especially, and we hear this all the time. My invoicing's not going through. We're getting slow paid. Well, is your DMARC in place? What
can you even tell if mail was delivered? Like, do you have any reported deliverability? Like, I loved showing my marketing manager, and you know who she is, Dan, at this time. And I would show her, hey, your mail got delivered. They didn't click. It's not landing. Like, it's so much better to have that data for the business. Even let's take egos aside. Knowing that it's not getting clicked because it's not good enough is far better than going, oh, it wasn't getting delivered. I didn't know that, right? And so it's better to know so you can have that data and understand, is it getting delivered and are they clicking on it? Is it valuable to them? So definitely.
The funny thing is DMARC has been around over a dozen years and it was designed to prevent spoofing, as we all know, right? But the adoption rate was tiny. But boy, when the service providers made it mandatory and now your email doesn't deliver, it's an emergency. My email's not going to Not the fact that I'm about to get ripped off for the tune of $130,000. Don't worry about that. My email's not going through.
Well, I mean, this is a prime business case where you got a marketing department that's pouring their heart and soul and all their talent into putting together a marketing campaign that's going to drive results for the organization. And they may have gone through some proof of concepts, and the final copy that they're putting out there is so rock solid. It's going to drive new revenue for them. It's going to allow them to communicate about a launch within their organization. But the end users, the recipients never get it.
Yeah. It's like, why waste all that effort? You're getting to the last mile and failing. Like, that's terrible. It's dying in front of the finish line. That's horrible.
It's time, money, and effort right out the window. You just,
if you guys don't mind, can I tackle kind of the spirit of this, the stop checking boxes and start fixing gaps, and what my thoughts are on that real quick, if everybody's all right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I also very quickly will just tackle Andrew Payne's question. He said, hey, other than the DoD, are there any other government agencies that have a whistleblower program? Whistleblower programs are more specific to the False Claims Act and extensibility of the False Claims Act, which applies to a lot of stuff, HIPAA, other things. Look up the Civil Cyber Fraud Initiative of 2021 that's still ongoing. Okay, so the spirit of stop checking boxes versus fixing gaps. What is a gap? A gap is understanding what perfect looks like, a standard. That's why in science we have standards, right? Literally a 50-gram weight that is kept under perfect conditions of so we have a standard, and then comparing that standard against where I am at. Where am I from an assessment perspective? Where am I at in that? So it starts by having something to compare oneself against, right? That's a very helpful piece of this is the ability to inspect against a standard. But what are the gaps that I'm talking about? Think of a football post, a couple of uprights, right? And I mean American football for anybody that's in Europe. So if I'm kicking at the left one, it would be, what does my compliance say that I need to do? Implement DMARC. Cool. I'm going to go put DMARC in as Mike Anderson described, even if I went and did it on all the 20 platforms. And I'm collecting emails, coming back to an email box. That checks the box. I am meeting that checkbox. But if I want to discover when somebody spins up and releases information on a platform using my domain name or spoofs or whatever it is, and I want to actually not get kicked in the face, then it's the right goalpost. And so you have to balance as an organization, where in the goalpost do you need to be? You can't be left of the left one, and you can't be right of the right one because it's impossible. So you just have to figure out, where am I okay being? And when it comes to DMARC, there are some gaps even in the standards, right? When you look at CIS 9.5, it just says implement. It doesn't give guidance to say get to P equals reject. It doesn't say track and meticulously update your asset inventory with respect to SaaS software in 2.1. It doesn't say those things specifically, but it is a translative aspect of kind of like this. If I'm going to go train and take Taekwondo lessons for my life, let's say, and I go through and I do the katas and I kick the boards and I pay the money and I get my next belt and I keep doing that, and then I step outside and get my ass kicked by somebody, I didn't learn Taekwondo. Right, I just paid to get certifications and get compliant. It doesn't mean that I can win, and so I think there's that aspect of where do you want to be? Do you want to check a box or do you want to win? And that's that segmentation between security and checking the box, and actually looking for those gaps between you and what a secure posture that your risk tolerance is good with. That makes sense.
And we hear that all the time. We hear that all the time with our MSPs. They're like, why should we continue to monitor this after we've already fixed it? Well, number one, customers add things to the environment and fail to tell you. Let's say they have a new invoicing system and they fail to tell you it's misconfigured and you have them on reject. We know they're getting rejected. Or the source changes from the manufacturer of the software. You're not monitoring it. They don't know. The customer doesn't know.
SPF record problems, things like that. There's all kinds of technical reasons one would do it.
DNS changes. Now you're not getting your lead forms emailed. Let me assure you what's going to happen when the customer figures that out after about 90 days of their invoices not being delivered. You're going to get a call and you're probably going to get fired. Right.
Well, at least you're going to find out about why did you not see this? Why, and degrade their vision of you in their opinion.
You do not want to take that call.
The other thing I wanted to tackle on this too is a lot of MSPs are saying, I don't want to be in compliance. Okay, that's fine. Like I don't want to measure GRC or compliance. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Even if you're in that category, I still firmly believe that you have to be able to show proof that you did what you said and sold to them. If you are saying to them, I'm managing your email and doing DMARC, can you prove at evidence for the last 6 months, 3 years, to whatever it is that they're required, whether that be HIPAA, that's 7 years, or whether that be other things that are regulatory, can you show that back in 2021 that they had DMARC management? The best way to do it is to show delta over time, the ability to show in some common platform methodology. And I've been using a platform for my DMARC management since 2016 or so, I think was when we first went down this road. For our organization and all of our assets as we kept buying MSPs, things like that, or maybe it was 17, something like that. Anyways, I'll yield the mic there Dan.
No, I mean, it shows, clearly what's going on, and you've got the reporting, the audit trails, you've got everything you need to check those boxes to make sure. And, I've literally heard that story a dozen times. Hey man, my customer added a new source. We didn't know, we weren't watching. And we got that call. I'm like, how'd that work out? They're like, not too good. I don't ever want to take that call again. And
you can see when threat actors are trying to use systems that you may not use anymore, or have left an account somewhere they can't delete an account, like where I might have had a mail sending account at MailGrid or something, or SendGrid or something, and then I can't delete it, but I've not using it anymore, and someone compromises that or something to that nature. It gives you information about that if you have some third-party platform methodology or your own self. I mean, obviously the platform makes it super easy and possible and scalable, but if you're going to do that, you would want to decommission that there, and then you'd find out if something was happening like that, right? So there's so many reasons that the reporting, that's why I started with this in this conversation, is such the big part of this.
Yeah, you want to keep all that clean and narrow and efficient, ready to go.
So we got another question here is how can companies move from being compliance driven, having compliance driven deployments, to more security driven deployments with DMARC? Or, essentially, as we're talking about with frameworks, just broader frameworks like, NIST, CSFs, CIS, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. I'll tackle this one first.
Yes, please do. This is definitely your arena.
So what is compliance? Compliance is measuring what you said you're going to do and whether you did it. That's compliance, right? And when you think about that, where does that come from? It might come from a contractual obligation. Like if I'm going to sell you parts, then I have to meet SPRS score above blank, and I'm going to, whatever it is, right? And in 171. Those are contractual requirements. You have to still be compliant to it to say, did I do what I said I was going to do? Which means you're looking at your policy and then checking to see if you actually met it. So you have a standard or something you're supposed to achieve, and then the way you said you're going to do it in policy and procedure, and then measurement thereof if you did it, right? That is compliance of something. When you talk about security driven, it is still those same things. That's why people get wrapped around the axle. It's still the policy, it's still the process, it's still the procedure, but now it's the efficacy and the breadth. Now I want to know, did I learn to kick people? Did I actually train with people that were kicking me? Did I get in real fights? Did I learn in those things? And so security-driven deployments are about risk. Security-driven are about, do I like getting beat up or not? Am I pretty resilient to punches in the face? Do I like bullets, right? There are things where you have to take risk-based decisions and say, that's where I want to do this. So it's about in my opinion, shifting more towards the emphasis of meeting safe harbor clauses and meeting the spirit of the contractual obligations. And sometimes that's not all that difference in cost. Like, we're not even talking about that much money here, Mike. Like, let's just be honest about this. It's not huge. It's really about intent, and it's really about understanding. And so I think these type of webinars, we're trying to dispel the understanding challenges. My favorite comment in here so far is the set it to P equals none and walk away. Like, it's like, thank you, Matthew. It's delicious. But yeah, the point is, I think shifting to more security-driven deployments is really about talking about risk, understanding the impact of something, how much it matters to the crown jewels, right? If it's about access to your StreamYard account for us to do this streaming, Dan, I would think its access to all of your social media accounts is quite valuable. And so when you think about how am I going to help protect that for you, Dan, I would look at risk. Like, what's the impact? It's a big old 5, baby. Because if that thing gets compromised, just like we saw with Linus Tech Tips, it sucks, right? But on the other side, what's the likelihood? Well, it's a pretty big one. It's easy to attack. They're fast. I can get you. I know your domain name. It's easy to find. Like, so when we look at that, they have high impact, high risk, or high impact and high likelihood. Then I need to focus on those things in a higher level, even with the same controls, with a higher level of scrutiny. And if you look at the cost of cyber defense followed up by the community defense model with CIS, they both speak towards that if you did the IG1s, 9.5 being one of them, if you did IG1s, you would actually remove 76% or something of TTPs. What's a TTP? It's a technique, tactic, or practice. Or somebody's going to get me on that, but it's not exact. You know what I mean? It's TTPs are what the threat actors do. But these TTPs are chained. Typically, I need 3 or 4 of them to execute my kill chain. And if I lose 70%, the likelihood of me losing 2 of those 3 or 4 of those 6 is pretty high. And I likely don't have the same chaining. And so they posited that you would see 70 or 80% harm reduction for companies that just simply followed the basics to a decent level of breadth and, back to that point, nuance and risk-based decision.
Yeah, we teach our MSPs that, your customer's domain is parked in the most dangerous place on the earth.
Yeah, it's in the intertubes. Yeah.
In the interwebs. And it has no security, basic security, except for what you put on it. Now, when you put a policy of P equals none, you're technically could be compliant, like Matt said, but you're not secure. Living in the worst section of any town or any city that you can think of, having your front door, but not locking it. Eventually, somebody's going to find it unlocked, and they're going to open it and go in and get it. And so that's the difference going to the P equals none to P equals reject, where you're secure, but you can't do that until you've gone through all the processes that Matt talks about.
Yeah, or you'll just shoot yourself in the foot.
Every single box, or you'll put your business in a dead stall. No email will go out. But once you get everything compliant, then you can lock the door, put your policy on reject and lock it. And now
you have good change management controls that you can build in. And now you can show why you added a thing. And now you can say, hey, marketing, if you want your mail delivery, you're going to have to let us know before you roll out this platform so we can apply SSO and we can do the other things we need to do to it as well, right? So it helps you increase your overall posture from a security perspective as well.
And going to the set it to P equals none and call it a day. I mean, let's go back over to, let's go back over to the set it and forget it, that mindset, right? Because again, the set it and forget it is calling it a checkbox, right? I'm done, hands off, let me move on. And the thing is, we can live in a business with high profit margins if we're doing things the right way. But if we're just trying to just click a checkbox and we just move forward, things are going to go awry and our costs are going to go up and skyrocket, and we're going to get fired from that account. We're going to ruin our reputation. So with that being said, why is it that set it and forget it mindset is so dangerous when it comes to email authentication, or really any kind of email security safeguard?
I would reference it right back to all what Dan said. He seemed pretty smart in that answer. So I would say, good. Those are most of it. The other thing is, when you think about set it and forget it, security is not static, right? Warfare is not static. It changes over time. Right. And when you think about traditional warfare in the 5 domains, at first it was just one domain we shot on land. And then eventually it was like we had this air thing and sea and these other things. And now we have all these domains and now space and all that. And then now information warfare and all these other aspects. So when you think about it, things always change. And so if you think something is going to be static and leave it alone and you don't re-review it, it's just going to punch you in the face. And I don't mean that specifically about DMARC, but I also do. I also mean that about almost everything. In CIS, there's a non-zero number of times that in that safeguard set, they say, comma space, or when significant business changes occur that cause a change to this safeguard, like maybe adding another marketing platform or maybe, right? And so they put in these caveats to make practitioners be practitioners and to understand that there's not a static view of this. And that's a lot of the failings of SOC 2s, right? Is this static approach, in my opinion, of how we looked at our controls and the breadth of it versus some always kind of increasing set of maturity models that exist. Like I'm part of CompTIA Trustmark, and Mike 9.5 is part of that from an asset management perspective of saying that, hey, we need to see where you are today, and next year I want to see that you've improved. Maybe next year you show me that you got your DMARC timing for P equals reject and adding change management down to 2 weeks or 1 day or 4 hours or whatever it is. And you can show this improvement over time. You're more automated, more things are tied in. You're now going in, anyways, all those things. So for me, set it and forget it means that you've statically accepted that you're at the level of posture you need to be at. To make this even more dumb and hyperbolous, that's like saying, I'm on XP, we're good. Like at some point, that's a stupid statement. I don't know where that crossover was, but it was about 15 years ago, probably. Maybe I'm dating myself, but
and let's face it, everything that we do in our business is complex and I mean,
dynamic. Yeah,
it's complex. And it's changing, you know, we can't even say on an hour by hour basis. It's changing on a second by second basis. And if we don't want to be in a business that's so complex, go buy a car wash, car in, car out, car in, car out, right? I mean, we have chosen to get into this industry, you know, for many reasons, but the beauty of what we're doing is that we are constantly having to change and adapt, and our clients understand that. And if they don't, we're not having the right conversations with them.
And we tell all of our MSPs, this is the same as the firewall, endpoint, AV. You wouldn't set any of those and just forget them, right? The customer can ask you to do that, but why would you ever do that? That's just silly. Something's going to come up. And you guys are both, you know, we've all been in MSPs. How many times has the customer added something, failed to tell you? Eventually, when you figure it out, there's going to, you know, it's usually at the intersection of a car crash, and you're like, where'd this come from? You know,
are y'all familiar with the Ohio Safe Harbor Act that was the first seminal kind of safe harbor act around cyber in 2018?
Tell us about it.
This one essentially says that if a company is found to be reasonably adhering to a set of standards at the time of a compromise or a breach, that their liability can be held, limited, or to zero, right? And it's what's called an active defense. It is something that I could use against a qui tam whistleblower lawsuit to meet the reasonable standard. What is reasonable? What is reasonable? The Government Accountability Office wrote a statement saying that there's a shift towards standards-based approach for reasonability studies and tests, meaning that we could argue that if you're looking at this standard and saying, did I meet that standard? That's what reasonableness. But to me, what reasonableness is this. Imagine we had a board game, right? And imagine we had a game like Monopoly. And we explain to these 12 jurors how Monopoly is played and how the game plays out in its turn-by-turn basis. We give them examples. We make sure they understand. As we go through that and I show them the way I played the game, if I didn't buy any houses or ever buy a property, but instead just hippity-hopped around and paid money every time I landed, would that be reasonable? And would those 12 people find it reasonable? No, they'd say you're an idiot. Now, what if I did buy houses and bought properties and that strategy was followed, but it wasn't enough to win the day? Would that be reasonable? And so what they're saying is now we're saying, let's try to make standards the way we talk about reasonability. Modern car washes, and Andrew, you're right. Andre, you're right. I would destroy you with your car wash, back to Mike's point. I would destroy your IoT because of your lack of integration and poor password management. And I digress. But anyways, my point is reasonability is met by meeting standards. Would it be better for me to say, why did you buy EasyDMARC? Man, it was that new hotness. It made mail easy. It was like, sweet, dude. And versus CIS 9.5 asked me to get to P equals reject. P equals reject has a componentry of DMARC, which includes DKIM and SPF. It is very hard for me to manage a fragmented set of SPF records beyond a certain number of recursive lookups. And additional to that, I actually had to mean, which one's more reasonable? My gut says it's that standard-based sounding one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't try to sell it like Matt says. I'll confuse them. I'll confuse myself if I talk like that.
I'm just making it up most of the time anyway, Mike. So we're probably all right.
So let's talk about we were talking about the gaps and the fact that we need to fix the gaps.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest gaps that you guys are seeing typical DMARC rollouts? And even let's just clarify this here. You know, regardless of your organization's operational maturity levels and you know what your stack is, your policies, procedures, you know, what are those gaps in those DMARC rollouts, regardless of their maturity level?
I'll just start off and then let Matt really expand on it. You know, we see people all the time that once they've done the initial assessment, they go, well, there's 3 or 4 things on here that we don't use. And I'm like, I assure you, your domain is using those.
Yeah, something's sitting.
It's pure DNS reporting. And, you know, they may swear up and down. And I've seen some of them even jump up and down and not really be reasonable, only to come back a couple weeks later and go, oh, right. Yeah, we are using that to send files somewhere. And so the gap of not knowing what you have in your environment, I see that all the time.
So wait a minute. So are you saying this is something like, you know, you go to IKEA and you're getting something to build and there's a couple extra screws and you're like, you know, we don't need those.
Yeah, we don't need those. Those L brackets don't mean anything.
Right, right.
Yeah. I think for me, it's service provider choice. There are a lot of companies that have let you send stuff on your behalf. Think of PSAs, RMMs, right? Things of that nature. And they use some shared MailGrid account or SendGrid account, or I'm making up a name. I know SendGrid's real, but the point being is they use some shared account and they don't let you inject DKIM keys and record locator or locators for your DNS. Like having that choice as a vendor or being forced into that choice as a vendor and not being able to apply enough pressure means that they don't get to that state because they're just stuck trying to get that one service to where they can actually authenticate it with DKIM or the SPF, some crazy gobbledygook, which mostly is solved by platforms that do instantaneous flattening or something of that nature. But the point is, it's usually the vendor choice that has been forced upon them that forces them to stay, not P equals reject, and instead be P equals quarantine or something of that nature to solve it. Or P equals none.
Yeah, we see a lot of reason around that. Those third-party senders on behalf of the second-party sender, you know, SendGrid using or ConnectWise.
One key, or something.
Like, we don't use SendGrid.
Yeah.
Use ConnectWise. I'm like, I assure you, you're using SendGrid.
I don't name names here, Mike. I don't say product company names in that sitch.
Right.
I'll just tell them Matt told me to say it if they ask me any questions.
There you go.
Not. I got live proof right here.
So how are you helping clients protect their domains from spoofing and phishing attacks today?
Well, for us, it's you know, having clear visibility, that line of sight. This is domain-based protection. So as soon as you put in that domain, we're going to pick up every subdomain and every single sending source and tell you what's good, what's not good, and what's being used. Now, our platform is intelligence, visibility, command, and control of what's going on in the domains. It's up to the MSP and the customer and people like Matt Lee and his intelligence to go, okay, what are these? Are these legitimate sources? Are they not legitimate sources? Weed the good from the bad.
Those are your VCIOs even, or the people that are having those conversations with the business, Dan. So like to your point about in the business, knowing what software people are using is valuable to knowing where the crown jewels are and what we have to protect from that perspective. So it's critical.
Once you have that visibility, then you have the roadmap of exactly how to get them all aligned so you can put them behind the security wall.
You know, of course, we have shadow IT these days, right? I mean, we have. I mean, let's just open up a whole new
open letter just recently almost.
Let's just open up a whole new can of worms with shadow IT, and you know, and God bless them, they're all these, you know, end users are just trying to do their job, but you know, they're not following the process. They're not, you know, the culture.
They just want to get the job done, right?
Security just isn't there. That's not part of what they're thinking about.
Yep.
Yeah, no,
yes, culture is and governance is what you're actually calling out, Dan. Right? When you get down to the end of this, I like to define governance as the will of the company. Right? If I want it to get done, it's going to get done. And I've used this a bunch of places. I know we might be running over time, but I have a concrete truck or a concrete person that lays concrete for roads in Kansas, the largest in the state at the time. And I was asking, how do you make money, Ron? And he says, Matt, I got to get a concrete truck to this job site every 30 minutes with the right mix of ash and cement and aggregate and water to be able to make this contiguous pour, or it's $2 million that I lose out of this if something fails there. Great. What does it take to do that? What happens if you have a truck fail? Oh, we got a whole shop. We got extra trucks. We have extra trucks with drivers in them waiting and ready. Great. That is all governance. You being able to make that decision was your governance and the will of the company to say, we're going to do this. You haven't done that with security yet. If you haven't done that with security yet, you're not going to be good at it. And so you're really calling out governance, Dan. That can't come from an external organization. Governance has to come from inside your own wee little heart. And that's where that unfortunately is the challenge of the culture of it, is the culture starts at the top and the culture is at the bottom. And so you have to be able to drive what you expect out so that truck driver is sitting in that truck ready every day, not pissed drunk, so that he could go and do the load if he had to, even though he's not doing a load today. That might be part of their contingency. And when it comes to their Kimball all-track system that they were running, they didn't have redundancies and failovers. And I was able to have that conversation with Ron to go, you're doing it everywhere else, you're just ignoring it here. And then furthermore, you're not protecting the C, the I, and the A, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. All three of those matter, right? And so like my confidentiality or integrity, the guy's not drunk in the truck, right? Availability, there's a truck, right, is kind of the point. So anyways.
And, you know, we have things like GDPR, we've got HIPAA, we've got CMMC, you know, we have all these areas of compliance that PCI. The clients are relying on. And let's face it, you know, 99.9999999% of MSPs are not nonprofits, and they are in business to make money. So how can an MSP monetize this level of support?
Yeah, I'll take that. And then Matt, if you want to add on, you know, we teach our MSPs how to turn the data into dollars, right? Looking at everything that's misconfigured, that must be configured by the MSP. This is DNS configuration if you just blow the smoke off of it, but that's real man hours. That's somebody's labor. That's time and effort. And so do you want to turn, democratize the data into dollars, and or what do you want to do? And so since that work has to be done, when I was in the business, I wasn't doing anything for free. It's like taking your car to a mechanic and expecting them to fix it for free is work. They're not going to do that, right? And so, you know, we teach the MSPs, you know, how to look at the sources and then apply impact to it. Is it, you know, is it a law firm and their invoicing and CRM and their mail marketing is not getting through? They're down tens of thousands of dollars and they're not getting any new leads. These people are going to pay to get that fixed. Is it a mom and pop's bakery that just sell donuts? They're not going to pay much to get it fixed. So know your audience, know the data, and you can certainly learn ways to reap some pretty big revenue and profit.
At the risk of going off on a like real long tangent, which I'm known for, I want to talk towards the commoditization of our world. Anybody play Angry Birds or any phone-based games on their phone? Like I have this like stupid role-playing game I'm playing now. This offline role-playing game. It's really silly. But anyways, you got anything there? How many times you had to call support for Angry Birds to fire up Angry Birds? Or is just Angry Birds just kind of Angry Birds? Like you just do it itself. I got to launch it and it's fine. It works. And so the point is there's this, you know, Microsoft 365 by comparison to an Exchange server. Holy God, what a difference of the work, right? And now with things becoming significantly application programming interface centric or API centric, plus RPA, robotic process automation centrism, the ability to automate expectations to do exactly what you want them to do in an order and a pattern in a way that you want to do it to control the experience. That means that systemically, I can do things easier with less humans. But that commoditization is also meaning that if Angry Birds just works, then it just works. My first 4 clients that I took all Azure Active Directory joined, and this was before the big security challenges, it was 2016, 17, and Intune and all of that, and SaaS-centric, fired me. And the reason was they said, Matt, stuff just works. I can't justify your high price per head. I believe there's an argument, Mike, to what you're saying of more and more the security and compliance and these other aspects of the world are backfilling some of that. So that means if you're already charging a per head, it may not be that you're going to add a DMARC management line item that I'm going to charge. I wouldn't do that. But I would say we're going to meet these standards, and this is what I'm going to charge you for it, and this is what I'm going to have to do to do that. And that means we're going to have to be doing much deeper work in the business than we have, even though I'm not doing the work to make your pooter work anymore. We're well beyond the pooter works. So now we're at a status of, can I make you better than your competitor with the same damn tools? Can I make you win the hockey game as if you were the Leafs? They didn't win last night, did they? Doesn't matter. But maybe they did. I hope they did. Anyways, but maybe you're the Leafs. Can I help you beat them with the same speed skaters, the same skates, the same prep time, the same game schedule, the same injury reports, the same doctors, the same things? How do you win? You have to coach them better. You have to be deeper in the understanding of their world and how they play. And that's that difference, in my opinion.
And let me tell you, this wasn't even a monetization play very strongly until 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. When Google, AOL, and Yahoo made
Nothing was driving it from a financial perspective in the same way. Threat actors weren't threat acting. Yeah.
Amazon, everybody made it mandatory. And now all of a sudden, a CEO's email is not being delivered. There's a big problem, right? Finances, invoices aren't being delivered. There's a big problem. So this monetization play was an afterthought until just last year. And now it's at the forefront of MSP.
And it gives it value. And that's what we're really talking about here is value. Whether it's monetized separately or monetized as part of your value proposition, it's value.
And I think that one of the biggest differences, when we take a look at, an MSP becoming a commodity is the type of conversations that are happening. And if we're talking about technical things, if we're talking about, all the bits and bytes, we are not going to have any FaceTime with any leader in an organization. If we are having this, if we're having the discussions about their business and we genuinely learn about their business, we learn about what their customer experience looks like. We take a look at where they can improve their client experience. We look for those bottlenecks. We truly understand the business outcome for them on a case-by-case basis, not just some generalization. We are not going to be a commodity. We are going to be somebody they're never going to want to stop talking to. And we are going to get FaceTime with the people that make the decisions, the people that 100%. We want to be in front of. If we talk about tech, we will not have those discussions. We will not get the engagement that we want. Or if we do get engagement, it's going to be a one-time thing. And then they're going to say, never schedule me an appointment with that person again.
I mean, sales is...
One more can I add? Dan.
Yeah, sales is, 80-20, 80% emotional, 20% logical. You show somebody, hey, I know your invoicing isn't working correctly. You think they're going to feel uneasy? You bet they are. Right? I know your email marketing is not working correctly. How's that working out? They already know how it's working out. It's not good. Their job's on the line. You get somebody off balance, but then you go, hey man, I can fix this for you. You just created that emotional connection. Now, is EasyDMARC going to make you cry because it's an emotional platform? No, but the data, transforming into a real world scenario that, hey, you've got real business problems and people's jobs are at risk sometimes with this. Everybody on here can attest, and you can say, hey, no problem. I can fix it and put you back on balance. That makes the needle move.
Yeah. All right. So as we're wrapping up here, I want to make sure that any of our listeners that want to learn more about EasyDMARC, that they know how to reach you. Of course, you can go to EasyDMARC.com for more information. We're running that on the ticker down below. If you're at everythingmsp.com, you can search for EasyDMARC and learn more as well. Any parting words let's start with Mike, some parting words.
EasyDMARC for MSPs. We make it easy. And don't forget to look for Matt Lee at the conference coming up soon.
There we go. Matt, parting words.
I would just say that what I've been as a thematic statement this year is it's time as an MSP to make a decision to move forward or not. And I think you're going to find it increasingly difficult if you're not finding and following standards and moving forward with them, whichever they are. Don't have to be CIS, but and the standards-based approach gives you authority and helps you backfill commoditization and make you more effective at reducing harm for these organizations and yourself. So,
excellent.
Standards.
Well said.
Well, with that being said, I do want to throw a quick plug out there. PAX 8 Beyond 25 is coming up June 8th through 10th in Denver, Colorado. Looking forward to that. And tons of great education, a lot of great vendors. We know EasyDMARC is going to be there as well. And Everything MSP will be there doing podcasting. So we'd love to meet you. definitely reach out and come up and see us. With that being said, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank, first off, Matt and Mike. Thank you so much for all of your time and your knowledge. I want to thank all of our audience for being here. It's greatly appreciated. This recording will be available soon, and so you'll be able to access that. And with that being said, until next time, stay secure, stay sharp, and thanks for being part of Everything MSP. Take care, everybody.